our guest speakers, so be sure to come down and line up, and I'll go ahead and I'll cue you. So, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Al Hamid. For those who know Al, they describe him as a results-oriented leader who is intentional about building deep relationships and delivering outcomes. Al is also known for his passion. He is meticulous about his craft, and he has a successful track record in most competitive markets. Al owns and runs several businesses, including Hamid Homes, a custom luxury home builder, the Cold Plunge Store, which sells cold plunges and saunas online, and his personal consulting business, where he coaches and advises business leaders and executives. What makes Al unique is his insistence for a customer-focused organization, his attention to detail, and his strong ability to recruit, develop, and retain talent. In his personal life, Al enjoys spending time with his beautiful and talented wife and 3 kids. They love to travel the world, as creating memories together is important to them. Al is passionate about fitness and participates in activities like mountain climbing and bodybuilding, which we will hear more about. Whatever Al does, he does it with passion and heart. Please give Al a warm USF welcome. Thank you.
Thanks
Al,
for that.
You're welcome. Welcome, and thanks for being a guest at the Busse Series Talks. I began my tenure at USF in 2024, so you are my 3rd guest. Thanks for your willingness to share your story with the students. To set the stage, I will share Al is a dear friend of mine. He's a confidant, and he has been in my life ever since. I'm blessed to have him. I met Al he and I were on a board together, Parkview Board, and I met him 7 years ago, and I haven't looked back. So we'll go ahead and get started. So to help the audience understand your journey, like I've had the fortune of sharing, will you please share about your bodybuilding career and now your mountain climbing adventures and how they've developed you personally and professionally?
No. Yeah, I appreciate that. Absolutely, I think we can dive into that. I think I maybe will take a step back and just kind of intro myself a little bit on a high level rather than jumping into some of the fun meathead stuff that I traditionally like to talk about. Born and raised in Fort Wayne, went to Carroll High School. Antoinette touched a little bit about high level about what I do from a business standpoint. Married with 3 kids. My wife is also born and raised, product of Fort Wayne as well, went to Snyder High School. I am 2nd generation luxury custom home builder, so Hamid Homes by trade. And I think that's kind of where the storyline starts. My dad came to this country from a 3rd world, 1978, didn't speak a word of English, basically met my mom. They grew up, she taught him English, a bunch of sprinkles and rainbow stories from there, but that kind of gets us into how I came into play, and we can kind of get into the weeds with that, but I'll touch base on that question. I think it's probably just maybe just a little bit premature to get into that rather than talk about just bench pressing.
So, yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's okay. So go ahead. Did you have any more to share about that?
No.
Okay. So give us a little background on how how Hamid Homes started and where it is today, why it is where it is today.
Yeah, I knew that was the next question, so that's why I teed that up that way. I appreciate it. That's exactly where I was going with that. So very humble beginnings. Right, so my dad was a structural engineer by trade. I grew up 2 kids in diapers and was laid off. We had some land in Churubusco, and basically learned how to build a house from the ground up. Hired some Amish crews and some craftsmen, and then built some houses, one and 2s. I remember being a little kid, watching him on a bike as he would build headers in front of an old Honda Civic that we had. So we grew up with, again, very humble beginnings, but I've learned the practices of hard work, tenacity, grit, some of the core values that you'll see in seemingly any business hall as you walk through any business, but actually seeing that in real life come to fruition was kind of the basis of how I learned. Undergrad and then grad programs, and then I put myself in a position basically where I wanted to impress my dad, if we're going to be really real and raw. My dad came to this country, didn't speak a word of English. Here I was with 3 degrees, 2 of them at the graduate level. My dad had bootstrapped his way into building a multi-million-dollar organization, and what was I going to do? So I worked with my dad all through undergrad, basically since I was 13 or 14, and worked with a different subcontractor and trade partner every summer to learn tips of the trade and to understand the language and to be able to piece together what I needed to understand. And then about 14 years ago, went out on my own. Dad kind of retired and gave me an opportunity to figure out what I needed to figure out. And that was a struggle. So I don't know if any of you are second generation yourselves or have aspirations to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. I'm not really sure what your target objectives are. There's different paths that you can take to success. But I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Not necessarily sure I wanted to be in the home building industry. Certainly didn't know I wanted to be in the e-com space with cold tubs or cold plunges and saunas, sorry. But that was a little bit about how Hammond Homes came to fruition, and we could further get into the weeds from there, but for the sake of time, we'll kind of keep going.
Thank you. Would you give them a little bit of history, since I know you and I know some deeper moments about you? Would you share a little bit about getting up every Saturday and Sunday morning, going to wear a hairnet, and because it's important for us to see how you got to where you are today, and it's not simply by magic dust.
No. Next question. Nobody wants to talk about hairnets, right? Especially on Instagram when everything is cool stories. But the reality of the situation is, and I appreciate you bringing that up, is you got to do what you got to do. So my parents, I knew our financial status growing up to the extent that I knew, that my parents let me know. We didn't have dirt floors, and we certainly didn't have porta potties. We had indoor plumbing, but I also knew what layaway was, and I understood the art of delayed gratification. So I say that to say, when I worked with my dad, the education was the compensation. So I had to seek employment and other means to be able to get a little bit of change in my pocket, and also at the same time save for a vehicle, pay for gas, things of that nature. So my mom, at the time, was the HR director for St. Joe Hospital downtown, and we lived in Columbia City, and my dad had made a deal with me that for every penny I had saved, up until the time I was ready to purchase a car, he would match that. $1,000, $1,000, 10,000, 10,000, whatever that is. So I worked in the kitchen from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, and my mom drove me into town because obviously I didn't have a vehicle, and I got to wear this really awesome hairnet. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Antoinette. Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. So oftentimes as onlookers, we see the successes of business owners. We see what a person has today, and we don't see the back struggles that those business owners, entrepreneurs had to go through to get there, and also what they have even at that day. So share with us a situation that challenged you, that caused you to maybe reconsider even stepping out of being an entrepreneur, business leader.
Yeah. How much time?
How did you pivot, and what lessons did you learn?
How much time do we have now?
About 25 minutes. I don't know.
I was being facetious. So I think we go back now, and again, you did a great job of prepping me with these questions ahead of time. Holly will share with you that I don't do a great job of staying on script. I like to speak from my heart and be real and raw. But I want to go
love that.
back now and speak to your first question about the bodybuilding and the mountain climbing.
Okay.
So anybody in here in any kind of extracurricular activity, athletics, band, sports, right? So something that requires you to do something long past when you feel like continuing to do it again. Right? Anybody in here play? Anybody here play sports?
Raise your hands high.
Anybody have a 2-a-day or a practice?
We have a lot of athletes in here today. The
Right.
majority of KB Sobel students are athletes.
Awesome. So I grew up playing sports as well myself, so I can relate to that mindset. But there are some times now, even at your age, with your disciplines and what you're studying and what you're seeking and your vision and your goals, there are some times right now where not everybody, unless you're an anomaly, wakes up and actually loves doing what they do. Every day, not everybody feels like going to practice, right? And we can get into the weeds of this a little bit later as well. Pardon me. That's where understanding what your goals and your vision come into, and making sure that they're your goals, because your want has to supersede your I don't want, right? And we can get into the weeds of that. But going back to that bodybuilding piece, so much discipline with every single morsel that you put into your body. So you have to understand how your body's going to react to food, sleep, working out, weight training, things of that nature. And you have to do it day in and day out and make sacrifices. Same thing with business. That is business. There isn't anybody else that you can call and say, hey, I need you to help me out with this or do this for me. Yes, there's relationships, and we can talk about the benefits of relationships and how genuinely, and I say this humbly, not to be braggadocious or arrogant, as a multiple business owner, it's who, not how. Relationships reap the rewards. There's so many things that you can do, and I go back to sharing my story. I was that guy that did it myself. Because I had a little bit of daddy issues, and I know I'm jumping all over the place here.
That's okay.
But I want to go back to some of these questions now that we kind of seeded. I wanted to make sure that everything got done, and I was the type of guy that if to get it right, I was going to do it myself. So if I needed to get bigger, I was going to eat more food. I was going to do more push-ups. If I needed to make more money, I was going to build more houses. I was going to wake up earlier, so forth and so on. You can do that to the extent that you can. And I found myself in 2019, stage 2 adrenal fatigue and cortisol issues. I didn't even know what adrenal fatigue was. I didn't even know there were stages to it or how I got there. But we can go down the rabbit hole of all of that. But going back to these conversations on what it takes as an entrepreneur. Not even as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing as a human. Everybody in this room does it. It's just what level do you do it at? You wake up every day, and it's not every day you want to come to class, but you made a commitment. The difference is understanding when and why you made the commitment, and that commitment has to be so strong that when the days when it's snowy or you don't feel well or insert whatever here, you don't feel like doing it, you don't negotiate the way that you live your life based on the way you feel. You negotiate based on your commitments. And if your commitments aren't clearly and concisely defined, your feelings are going to supersede those commitments every single day. Little things start like being late to class, not going to class. I'm not trying to preach. Take it from me. I mean, don't let the shiny shoes fool you. Yes, I said I have 3 degrees, 2 of them at the master's level, but it took me 12 years to get an undergrad degree because I didn't really care. I didn't really buy into it. My why wasn't strong enough. My dad had shared with me, because he came from a third world country and didn't have access to an education, that I couldn't be successful unless I had a college degree. Went to Ball State and left Ball State like a genius with 3 credit hours left. For real. I mean, if we're going to sit up here and talk, let's be real. Let's speak from our heart, and let's be, at least maybe you get a gold nugget, maybe you're like, all right, great, when's lunch? But in my mind, it was my way of saying, hey, I can go out in the world, stick it to the man, come back and get a college degree after I made it. And that's what I attempted to do and somewhat did it. I submitted my last paper for my undergraduate degree the day my daughter was born in the hospital. And then 4 years later, almost to the day, I submitted my last paper when my son was in the hospital for 2 graduate degrees. The delta between 12 years and 4 years, one of them I was doing it for somebody else. I was running somebody else's race. I didn't have my why clearly, concisely defined. The other one I very much did. I was playing for keeps at that time. I had kids. Anyhow, a little bit long-winded.
No, that's fine. That's amazing. Yeah. I'm fortunate to know you, so I get to get in those deep conversations.
About hairnets. Awesome.
Hairnets, yeah. Throughout my short time at USF, I have the fortune and I'm blessed to be able to meet with students, lots of times one-on-one and even in groups. And I've shared a few times excellence and mediocrity. Both are really difficult. You and I have had deep conversations around this. Both require humans to expend energy, but excellence offers us options. Share how you cut your day into quarters. And the reason why you do that, to really be able to live in that space of excellence.
It's a really deep question. It's a great question.
Yeah. I know it's deep, but our students are real sharp. They can get this one.
I know. All right. So one of the business models that I pursue is coaching and consulting, and most of the time that's done for one-on-one C-level executives, business owners, entrepreneurs, and we discuss things like business acumen, time optimization, understanding vision and goals, who, not how, making sure they've got the right amount of personnel, the right people on the bus, things of that nature. I shared with you a little bit high level. I touched base on the surface about my own struggles in business and navigating, wanting to be everything for everyone, right? Because I wanted to succeed so badly because I saw what my dad had been able to do, and I wanted to be able to do that not only for him, but for myself and my own kids, right? I wanted to leave my own mark. And I drove myself into the ground at the age of 37, 38 years old. I had no idea what cortisol issues or adrenal fatigue was. And I've been weight training, bodybuilding, arm wrestling, powerlifting, any meathead thing that you can think of, anywhere from 198 and a quarter to 265 and anywhere in between. So I know everything about, and it's presumptuous, and I know that sounds arrogant and braggadocious, but I knew my body and my body well. But I didn't know how stress was creeping up on me because I wanted to be everything for everyone. I was the builder, the real estate broker, the interior designer. I have no reason being an interior designer, but I had to do whatever I had to do to move the needle and make things happen. And that put me in a position, I'm going down the wrong rabbit trail.
It was really about your, you cut your days into quarters.
Right, thank
and
you
why
for
do
that.
you do that? How does that move someone to excellence?
Right, so thank you for that, put me back on track. Where I was going with that was I felt like I was chasing a dollar amount. I wanted to be a seven-figure earner, and I felt as though I was doing anything and everything in my power to figure that out. And at the cost of time with my kids, if I'm going to be completely transparent, when my son was 4 years old, we were in the middle of singing happy birthday to him. And I stopped singing happy birthday so I could take a call from a client. Now, in my mind, I wasn't all about the money and trying to justify and be all about the business. In my mind was, as a truly custom home builder, I wanted my clients to know that I was available. And there's a point to this story I'm sharing with you. But I didn't understand the cost. The opportunity cost of that phone call was me telling my son, you're not as important, Daddy has to work. And I did that for about a decade of my life. And that put me in a position physically where things in my life were manifesting to where I started to notice that, hey, there's some problems here. I can't navigate and handle and manage stress, and we can share with that. So I started researching who are these 7, 8, multi-8-figure entrepreneurs? What are they doing, and how are they doing it? And I researched guys like Ed Milet, Tom Bilyeu, Hal Edrod, a myriad of guys that were in the self-improvement space, and I learned it's time. Everybody has the same amount of time. The difference is some people spend their time, some people invest their time. The wise of us understand the differences and when to deploy that. So if you look at it from a high level, this is a business school, so we can look at it Business 101. Deductive reasoning will say if you want to be a seven-figure earner, let's just make easy math. You want to earn $1 million by December 31st of your fiscal calendar year. Well, you're taught to have benchmarks. Got to have points to be able to track your progress throughout. So by June or halfway through, you want to be able to earn 500K, a half of that 250K. Case in point, my point being is we do that in our business models all the time. But how many of us do that in our personal lives? At all. Not only did I not have benchmarks or set up, but I didn't even have goals. I had loosely defined goals. I wanted to be less than 10% body fat, be able to bench press X amount of reps, have 7 figures in my bank account, and make sure that I was a good dad and husband for my kids. Nothing wrong with that if that's your goals. But those loosely defined goals didn't put me in a position where I wanted to be. They ran me into the ground. So I started to recognize that, again, in business, we break our years into quarters. We do a first quarter assessment, a second quarter assessment, third quarter assessment, so forth and so on. And we reverse engineer from there to be able to make adjustments accordingly. And if we don't, we should be. Again, we don't do that in our personal lives. So what do we look at in our personal lives? And if we break it down, vitals, vision, vehicles. A vitals assessment is where are we at? It's not me versus Antoinette, me versus Holly, me versus you, me versus you. It's just a conversation in yourself. If there's something that's not going right in your life, if you're addicted to something, if you're in a relationship you shouldn't be, if on and on and on, if you're walking a path you know that you shouldn't be, you can stop it. You just have to have vision, and then not only is your intention there, but you got to be able to put a system behind it. That's the difference between January and February 1. February 1, everybody's got the great intention when you go into the gym. Gym is awesome. It's full of people. Everyone's got a great intention. All right, new year, new me. I'm not going to eat that anymore. I'm going to do great. By February 1, 30 days, gym looks totally different. And I'm not picking on anybody else. Everybody had the intestinal fortitude and the wherewithal to go to the gym. Awesome. I appreciate and respect. I'm not marginalizing that. But you didn't change your systems. Your intentions changed, but the way that you live your day-to-day didn't change. And that's what I had to do in my life. So I broke my days down like I broke my weeks. Most weeks in a calendar, or most months in a calendar year, 4 weeks. So my businesses, instead of looking at it every quarter, I needed more touches. I looked at it at the end of every month. Now every Sunday night I look at my calendar. Same thing in my personal life. What are my personal objectives? That's my vision. Vitals is where am I at? That's our starting point. Like, am I good or am I not? It's simple. You can be real. You don't have to write any of this down. You just be real with yourself. Your vision is where do you want to be? And I do this exercise with high-level CEOs and much deeper into the weeds with it. But at the end of the day, in 10 seconds, you can break it down like this. Pardon me. December 31st of 2025. Excuse me. You're raising a glass. And you're saying, by the grace of God and the sweat of your brows, we were able to accomplish this. What is this for you? New home, an A, graduate, higher GPA, score too many touchdowns, get a new relationship, make a new friendship, leave a relationship, whatever that is. If you don't cast vision for that, how are you going to walk that path? Now we go back to what I said about 10, 12 minutes ago. Well, I don't feel like waking up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, but if I don't feel like waking up, all right, then I'll just sleep in. Well, then I don't get my workouts in. And if I don't get my workouts in, it affects me mentally. If it affects me mentally, I might lose confidence. If I lose confidence, how am I going to show up as my best self for my team? If I don't show up for my best self for my team, how can I have that expectation for my team to show up for their best self? On and on and on and on and on and on. If you run at a high level, you've got to put yourself in a position to run at a high level. So getting to the point, break my day down into 4 quarters. Me, in, on, we. Selfish.
Could you repeat that again? Would you repeat that slowly? I didn't hear it.
So I break my day into 4 quarters. Me, in, on, and we.
Okay.
I like to get up early. So, and again, I go through the same exercise with guys that we coach and consult, and we talk about it. If you say, man, I'm never waking up at 4 o'clock, cool, I was there too. I get it. But don't let where you're at in your life disqualify you from what I'm sharing with you. I'm just being real. If you take it or not, it's a victim statement. Guys, okay, I digress. We'll go back to me for a second. Some of you in this room are caretakers for younger siblings, older parents, older siblings, folks that you have to take care of. Some of you have odd job, multiple jobs. Some of you don't have any of that, but everybody in this room has a responsibility of some sort. Somebody relies on you to help fill their cup. As my phone and my watch are going up or blink, that's the reality of the situation, right? But if you're constantly pouring from your cup into somebody else's cup, how are you able to continue to fill your cup? When we're little kids, we do stuff that we want to do. We color, we play, we tag, we do things that fill our cup, that are fun. We get to this age, especially when you get to be an entrepreneur, because until you're capitalized, you don't have multiple departments. You are payroll, you are HR, you are the builder, you are the realtor, you are the designer. Unless you want to pay somebody else, then you got to go get another job because you don't have anything left in the bank. Who's filling your cup? And I take 4 hours every single day. I put 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week into filling myself. So if I want to learn a new language, that's the time I go to the gym. That's the time I want to get alone and pray and get with God. Whatever it is, I don't answer phone calls. I'm not available to the world from 4A to 8A. I've enrolled my wife in that. My wife has her own amount of time as well. Some of you, it may be like, man, I only have 20 minutes. Cool, take 20 minutes to refill yourself and put yourself in a position where you can show up to the world as your best self. 8 o'clock, from 8 o'clock to noon, I'm working in my business. So, and again, there's a whole separator of the things that we can talk about into that. But now I'm showing up to pour into other people. And I'm doing it at the best capacity that I can because I've already started the night before and getting a good night's rest, and I protect my sleep like I protect a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning with the president of an organization that wants to build a $10 million house. Like, it's non-negotiable for me because I know how I show up the next day. I don't want to show up as 50% Al because, believe me, 50% Al is not anybody that sits in this chair that I would want to listen to. Why would I do myself a disservice? I want to show up as my best self. And I'm not sitting here telling you I'm sprinkles and rainbows and everything is awesome every single day and I'm 100%. No. But I want to give myself that shot. So I fill my cup every single morning to do that. Then working in my business. In my business is for all of you. Anybody in here done like a disc analysis or a self-analysis? Anybody in here type A?
Students, strength finders, raise your hand if you've taken strength finders. The Gallup assessment, nobody? Anybody taking the DISC profile?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a no. Okay,
No.
all good. As you progress into business, there are opportunities for you to take profile assessments to learn your specific strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and sweats. Think of it as like a SWOT analysis for your personalities, right? Most of that have like, and I'm stereotyping here, but a type A personality, somebody that looks forward to Monday morning, they can't wait, they're type A, they're go-getter, let's get it done, move. Somebody wants to be in their business, they're gonna make their money now. Those folks do a great job of moving the needles, they're doers. So there's a great book by Gino Wickman called Traction, and in that book he talks about an EOS, which is an entrepreneur operating system. And there's a difference between an implementer and a visionary, and I'm not saying they can't work together or they're both mutually exclusive. Visionary, we could talk about, visionary casts the vision and rolls the team on why they want to be in there. The implementer is the doer. That's the guy that if he didn't ever have to take his bags off or ever have to like tire out, like that's the dude you want on your team because he's constantly going. Or she's the gal that's just constantly move. But those people aren't the best. And sometimes they end up running the best at casting a vision. Sometimes they end up running a race that they get to the finish line and they're like, all right, cool. I don't even care that I got this award now. I was just running a race to compete. You got to have the two. That's working in your business, you go hard. Whatever that may be. For you guys, it's going to class. Or it's literally going to a job or doing whatever that is. Maybe for you, it's 8 hours instead of 4. For me, it's 4. From 12 to 4. The third quarter of my day, I was working on my business. The difference between in and on, in business is going to make me money now, like today. How am I going to make money to put food on my table today for my kids? On my business is me casting strategy. Do I have the right personnel in place to be able to task delegate effectively and efficiently? Am I casting vision for that personnel? Do they have the appropriate tools to be able to do that? I'm sowing seeds of relationship into the community. If you look see what time it is right now, it's 12 o'clock. I'm in my Q3. This is a non-revenue producing opportunity for me. I don't have expectations of revenue in Q3. It's relationship. Maybe some of this is like, all right, cool, bro. We're good. I'm out of here in 15 minutes. I'm going to lunch and we're done. Checks the box. Maybe one of you got one just little good gold nugget from these. Cool, that works for me. From 4P to 8P, if you take anything out of this, and again, I say this humbly, not to be arrogant or braggadocious, but there are CEOs of organizations that we literally go through this exact same process and protocol, and they pay me tens of thousands of dollars to do that because they're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars when they put these pieces into play. Just because you don't have a business yet, or you're not a business owner yet, or in leadership yet, doesn't mean you can't deploy the same systems to be able to put yourself in a position to do that when you get there. That's that whole stay ready, you don't have to get ready type thing.
That's right. That's the new saying. Stay
right.
ready so you don't have to get ready. What's the name of that model?
That's a 4-quarter operating system. But listen, the 4th quarter is the biggest piece.
Okay.
Everything I do comes down to my 4th quarter. So I talked about me, talked about in my business, talking about all my business. Well, what's we?
Me in we.
Me in on.
Me in on we. Okay.
Now it's we.
We.
My we is my wife and my kids. I learned that in 2019. Cool, bro, you can make $12.2 million, but if you pick up the phone to answer a call in exchange of time for your kid's birthday while singing happy birthday, like what are we doing? Where is your vision? Eventually, take it from me, you will get to the point, maybe it's...
So what does that mean to our students in their lives? Because you and I are old people. I'm an older people than you are. So what does that mean in the lives of our students? You just said, I picked up a phone and I disregarded my family. So how can they relate that to what they do?
Yeah, what cost are you for sale? How much is your time worth?
Okay. So can you give an example of what that means? Because sometimes life looks very differently at this age than it did when I was in my 20s. And
For sure.
Selling my time in my 20s was an easy thing to do.
Yeah, because we have an ample supply of time in compared to our capitalization in our 20s or 30s. And for some people, I don't even want to marginalize or categorize 20s and 30s. Some people, that could be 40s and 50s.
Absolutely.
70s, 80s.
Yeah, because some of us never learn lessons.
Yeah, 100%. Well,
Yeah.
they just, maybe lessons. Maybe they don't have work ethic. Maybe they don't have access. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a litany of things, right?
Yeah.
So non-judging. But for the sake of this conversation, it's understanding. Again, goal setting and vision. I work with grown adults that, again, all right, so 6 years ago, if you asked me about goal setting and vision, I'm going to say, dude, how many worksheets do we have to have for us to go over some corporate stuff? Like, I know what we want to do. We want to be successful. We want to build quality homes. We want to build on and on and on. All right, we're marginalizing that. Because what happens when you hit that? I want to be a millionaire. All right, you're a millionaire. What happens when you hit that? I want to be a veterinarian. What happens when you hit that? Like, I want to be insert here. So when it comes down to you, like, well, why do you want to do that? Understanding your vision in the root of that will help you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, naturally.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We have just about 5 more minutes, and I have a few more questions. I really want, I guess, for you to provide some nuggets, takeaways in just a minute. But you mentioned vision, and you've talked about it. It's really, really important. And one of my questions is around, we use that word vision a lot in the business world. But so successful organizations, they'll create a plan, frequently evaluate, like you shared, and then they measure the outcomes, and then they adjust as needed. What would you suggest? Why is it so important for us to create a vision for ourselves, have it written, go back to it frequently, and see where we are, instead of just, because I'm just as guilty of getting up day by day and getting done what needs to get done, but in the end, that doesn't help me cast where I'm wanting to get to.
It's good. I don't know that I want to take credit for that, right? I mean,
What was that?
I don't know that I want to take credit for that.
Uh-huh.
I think I buy into that. Understanding my audience, I say that to say, without a vision, the people will perish.
Yes.
Right. So that didn't start with me.
Right.
Right. So coming back to understanding that, if you don't have a vision, you can be a grinder, and a hard worker, and a doer.
And I am that. You know me.
I know that, 100%. But how many
And it doesn't
times-
always work.
Same, right? And I'll ask you the same questions I ask myself. How many times have you been in a situation for an employer, or you've been in a situation with a relationship, maybe a relationship that's kin, that's even family? Like, you didn't even get to choose the relationship. Like, you're just there, but you're working on the relationship, you're grinding on the relationship, you're grinding to be able to meet every single metric or objective that it's there. But the reality of the situation is, it's not your relationship. You didn't cast vision for that relationship or that employer, and you end up running a race that you're competing that you probably shouldn't even be ran in the first place.
Awesome. So another question is, I get the opportunity to meet with a lot of employers in the community, and the students who take my classes are required to have an internship, externship, fellowship, something. Will you share why it's really important? I know COVID put us in a space where we became very comfortable, or maybe even not, because I still am on meetings where people keep their screens turned off, their cameras turned off, which, would you explain why it's really important to have our cameras on when we have to be on one, why it is as important to meet face to face, shake hands, and dress the role when we are trying to cast our vision to get to where we're going? So can you do that in a good 2 or 3 minutes?
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know that you're going to agree with my answer.
We just want to hear your wisdom. We
But
we don't have to
That's
agree, we
why
just want
we
to hear it.
vibe.
Uh-huh.
So I'll circle back and land the plane on, I for the most part agree with your assessment. But I would say this: at the end of the day, we give the meaning to meaning, right? So you've attached a meaning to somebody not turning their screen on.
Yeah,
Maybe
I have.
they're and I'm not dismissing it, for
Right.
sure. Maybe they're disrespecting in the fact that they're undivided in their attention, or that's the assumption, or they're doing something else, and that very well, for the most part, probably is the case. To that point, understanding your audience on what meaning Antoinette's going to attach. So if I have an understanding of Antoinette, because I've done my discovery prior to our conversation, I know that if I get on a Zoom call and my screen is off, one, I'm automatically going to show up, and now we're not aligned. We're not equally yoked, because I know her screen's going to be on, A, because that's what she is wanting, she's looking at. So now I need to understand how to meet her where she's at, and now I got to do that reactively. Skip all of that. What you said, the value add, and from my perspective, is understanding that relationship rewards. For the most part, if it is not a transactional relationship, like, let's boil it down. Antoinette would probably not be talking to you. I'm not going to say that Antoinette, because I know her heart, I'm not going to say that Antoinette would not be talking to someone on a Zoom call unless she's getting compensated for it. If you were in need and she knew that she could help you, regardless of situation or circumstance, I matter-of-factly believe that Antoinette would be on that Zoom call to help you. But I don't believe she would be talking to you about business subject matter or something that's going to relate to school. I think she's going to teach you and help you and serve you about life, on something that's going to teach you on a deeper. So I say that to say, if it's a transactional relationship, if we're not in a transactional relationship, then what serves us? It's the relationships. That's the transitional relationship. That's the delta. It's the relationship piece.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
That was like less than 3 minutes.
So in 30 seconds, can you give us some nuggets that you think are important for students to take away? Because after that, we're going to open the mic for the audience to ask questions. What's a takeaway? I know, so I have a takeaway. One
Okay.
of my takeaways is when I meet with you, that's really valuable. It's vision, mindfulness, intentional, proactive. Those are all very important if I want to not only cast my vision, but to get to where I'm going. And that's what I took away. I know sometimes it's a lot of words up here, but that's
Sure.
what I took away. So is there any word or two you can give us that you want the students to hear?
I think, again, we can talk vision till you're blue in the face, but understanding how vision can help and serve you and what that looks like for you. It doesn't have to be some great, grandiose, crafty saying. At one point in time, and we can land the plane on this, at one point in time, I'll share with you a story. My vision was the word boots. So again, we've got some athletes in here. Most of you have a rock or a sign or something that you touch, rub, shake, whatever, before you go out on a field or a court or a game. So very similar to like Notre Dame has play, like a signage that you touch or whatever. I have an old pair of cowboy boots sitting outside my door that I still touch every day. The bottom of the boots, the nail flap, or the flap of the boots are pieced together with a roofing nail. And those are my dad's old boots. That, to me, we can sit here for the next 10 hours and I can't accurately describe what walls I will run through and the amount of vigor that I will run through and the amount of grit that I will have to continue to show up with wave after wave after wave after wave. I don't want to make it about me, but how can you beat that? If you have those same boots, your vision is undefeated. Time hasn't caught up yet.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to welcome any student or anybody else to the mic to please come up and ask questions. And you promised to share a little bit about your bodybuilding and your mountain climbing, but you were
Keeps going
deeply
back to that.
you were
Come up
deeply
with the
embedded in
questions. Let's
other
go.
things. So just give a little synopsis of, in 30-second synopsis of your mountain climbing.
It's not
And while
possible.
he's doing that, would you please come to the mic and ask some questions? Anybody? Go ahead.
Anybody? Not all at once.
Somebody has some questions. Do I need to call some names? I know somebody. Donald, come on up. Come and ask a question. Go ahead. All right. Thank you. What's your name? Go ahead and tell us your
Trey.
name, your year, and if you're in a
What's
sport.
up, Trey?
I am a junior. I'm studying business here.
Okay.
And I was just gonna ask, like, what are some books like that
It's a great
you've
question,
read
dude.
that help you learn?
That's a great question.
If you don't mind, whatever you say, I'm probably gonna write down. So
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I'm not just on my phone.
I can give you like 2 or 3 off the top of my head, but I have a whole laundry list that I have. So if you connect with me on socials,
Okay.
and I can show you I can drop that before we get out of here. But off the top of my head, the first one I would go to, are you guys familiar with, you ever heard of Jocko Willink? So Jocko is an ex-Navy SEAL, very matter of fact, runs multiple businesses, a business consultant. He's got a book called Extreme Ownership. The meat and potatoes of that book is, regardless of situation or circumstance, whatever goes wrong in your life, if you don't believe life happens for you and not to you, it's up to you, it's on you to fix it. Extreme ownership, regardless of situation or circumstance. There's another one, a little bit more of a slower read, called Mindset by a lady by the name of Carol Dweck. She talks about and discusses the differences between a fixed and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is very victim statement minded. It's been this way for 30 years. I'm not going to fix it. My dad did it this way. I'm going to do it this way. Growth mindset is, what do we got to do to make it work? Obviously, it worked for 30 years, but going forward, we need to find something new, so forth and so on. Those are great books. And I referenced the third book, I referenced it earlier, Traction. A guy by the name of Gino Wickman. He's wrote a couple of books. From a business standpoint, like if you want tactical, practical business tips, that's a good one, because he gets into the weeds of how you should basically line up the players on your field or your court and tells you what you should be looking for there. That's a good question, Trey.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, who is up? Come on. Come on, somebody. Bronson, come on up. Ask a question. You know, all the times you've come to my office, you can get to that microphone. He's one of my favorites.
Oh, man.
I
Sorry,
like
brother.
him. Yeah.
Like as a senior, when you're hiring people, what's probably the biggest things that you look at? Not as like a social, but like physical, or like body language and stuff like that.
What's your name, dude?
Bronson.
Bronson, that's a really good question. So part of a storyline, I got a lot of storylines, right? But we all do. One of the stories that I didn't share is there was a small period of time where I stepped outside of real estate and residential construction because I've been in that my whole life. And I wanted to understand, like, is that what I want to do? Is there something different? Whatever. So I got into wireless sales, and I worked my way up, never sold a cell phone before in my life, into vice president of sales. And basically there was no room for vertical growth. So I quit. I was unemployed for a year and a half. Research. Long story short, ended up acquiring 4 Verizon wireless stores in West Texas. Did that for like a year and a half till my daughter was born. Skip all of that. Retail and commercial B2B and B2C sales guys. So I was holding constant interviews. The whole point of me sharing that story with you is I'm constantly proactively looking for interviews. So I have a wealth of experience in what to look for. Right now, you see it oftentimes where if you haven't maybe checked all the proverbial boxes that you possibly could have, I'm not going to say should have, could have, like community service offerings, extracurriculars with athletics, or anything that you can do outside of getting the best grades that you can do, right? Something that's going to separate yourself and differentiate. And there's a lot of resources here that are going to be able to speak to this much better than I would. You're not going to be able to rely on your resume from a wealth of experience. That's my point in sharing that. So you're going to have to separate yourself with what I would call the intangibles. What time did you show up? What was your handshake like? Verbal eye contact. Did you ask good questions? What's your engagement? So now, as an employer or a leader, I'm directing my sales leaders or the divisional leaders or regional managers, whoever the interviewing partner is, depending on what we're looking for, is to look for those intangibles. Do we feel like someone's going to be able to navigate grit? Are they going to be able to navigate change? So I think showing up and having some of those things that you do and you do well with consistency is going to put yourself in a position to.
Bronson, you remember those conversations I had with you?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. I know. That was an excellent question. Showing up on time, being excited, asking questions, communicating not just the way I'm used to communicating, but communicating in the way that whatever system I'm in needs, okay? So that means answering emails, even though I may not like emails, if that's the way the system is, doing that. So yeah, those are the things that help set us aside, shaking hands. So yeah, thank you.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've got the point and picture right now. My director of business development, Holly, is sitting right to your left. So she brought up emails, and I share that to say, real world, that's an intangible, right?
Yeah.
Client reaches out, hey, I would love to be able, my primary business model is building luxury residential homes. Would love to sit down and talk to you about building homes. I can tell by the questions that they ask in their emails if they are using that same cut and copy email, if it's going just to me, or that they send that to 4 other home builders. Now, did 4 other home builders respond already? And we responded, but we responded 2 weeks later. So we have a 24-hour commitment. So we're going to respond regardless of the situation within 24 hours. That's an intangible.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on a resume.
So that relates to students. When their professors send them emails, it's really important to respond in 24 to 48 hours because it's the same way in the business world.
Facts.
We have time is winding down. Are there any more questions? Thank you, Bronson,
Thank
for
you.
that. Any more questions? We have time for one more question. And we know if anybody has to go to class, feel free. Be sure to scan the QR code when you do leave, and make sure you take a refreshment. What's your name? Thanks for coming.
My name is Levi Curtin. I'm a freshman.
Thank you.
A little bit of a meathead question.
No, that's not true. You're here to find out, right?
All right. What's your all-time bench max?
I knew you were going to say that, dude.
Well, I've seen him do about 415, so it might be 520.
It's been a long time since I one rep maxed. When I was the height of bodybuilding, it was not atypical for 3 to 5 sets of 15 with 315.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Ask him how fast he's run his fastest mile.
All right.
He
Fastest mile.
hates to run. He hates it.
Dude.
He may not be able to tell you.
I actually ran track in high school, and then I lacked the vision. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
got it, buddy.
Any other questions? Holly, you said you were going to have a question. Do you have one for your boss, your supervisor?
Yes, you talk about 4 quarters, but your 4 quarters ends at 8 p.m. Where is the 8 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
Yeah, so that was a softball question that she just gave me there. So that's the 5th quarter. I referenced it earlier. Pardon me, and we can land the plane on this. I'm sure you guys have athletes, as many athletes there are in this room. We talk about rest, but that is a separator that I see in the business realm.
Huge.
Those that are showing up, they're ready, they're attentive, they're organized. It's a separator. So learning to protect your sleep is key. And believe, guys, I just shared with you I was an undergrad for 12 years, right? So I understand the game. I get it. But I also understand why are you here? Like, if you're going to be here and play for keeps and play for real, like, if you want to party hard and play hard and do whatever you want to do, cool. I'm not going to judge you and have that conversation. No, I'm going to encourage you, like, bro, is that your highest and best usage of time? You figure that out. But in the meantime, at least give yourself a shot. At least give yourself an opportunity with sleep and nutrition, especially if you're playing sports. Mm-hmm. Because eventually that game doesn't stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I just shared with you. I could look at macro count and tell you exactly how much protein I ate, how many carbohydrates I ate, what my fat content was, and I could do it for not weeks or months, but years.
But you can still end with adrenal failure if you're not getting enough sleep and protecting your time.
Doesn't matter if you're not protecting your sleep. So that's the
right.
5th quarter.
Yeah. So sleep is important. Man, this has been a wonderful audience. Any other questions before we close for the day? Please. Al is a wealth of knowledge. Al, what is your, how could students connect if they have a question around books and questions?
Social media, so Instagram primarily, it's just Hamid
Do you have
Holmes.
LinkedIn? Our students are now LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, so Al Hamid,
How many here have LinkedIn
H-A-M-E-D.
profiles already? Anybody have your LinkedIn profiles? Yeah. What's it called on LinkedIn also?
First, Al Hamid, Ed, H-A-M-E-D, Hamid Holmes on Instagram, or Al Hamid on Facebook.
Oh, you have the book? Mm-hmm. You're showing your age.
Bring it back, bro. Still got it.
Okay, show of hands of our students. How many of you have Facebook? Ah, okay.
See?
We got some in here with the book.
I respect you.
All right. But you know what? That's another avenue for him, because think about it. His business are custom homes, luxury homes. He builds homes 10,000 square feet. It's not an everyday home. I've known Al for, as I shared, several years. Al builds maybe 8, 10 homes a year because the builds are incredible. There was some video on the screen when you walked in. But that being said, that's another avenue to reach people maybe who can afford those homes, right, on the book. So it's another way to market itself. One short summary. Tell us a piece of advice we can take away from today, please.
Make adjustments, not excuses.
Make adjustments, not excuses. Give Al a round of applause. Thank you.
That was good, Tom.
We are still up here. If you have questions and you just didn't want to go to the microphone, we welcome questions, so you guys can come up and we'll come down and chat with you. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Please be sure to get a refreshment and to scan the QR code.